David Leonhardt is a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer for the New York Times, where he writes its flagship daily newsletter, The Morning. What is the big idea here? The definitive history of the modern American economy and the decline of the American dream, from the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist behind the New York Times, The Morning newsletter. Here are the 5 key insights from a recently published but acclaimed work, Overwas the Shining Future. Number 1. We are living through the Great American Stagnation. In 1980, the United States had a typical life expectancy for a high-income country. Today, the US ranks at the very bottom of that list. People in Canada, Japan, Western Europe, and every other rich country in the world live longer than Americans. During these same decades, incomes have grown slowly for most Americans, and the net worth of a typical household is lower than it was when the 21st century began. Pundits and politicians wonder why polls show that Americans are unhappy with the country's direction and dissatisfied with the economy even when it's growing. But this is because economic growth hasn't translated into rising living standards for most families. The country hasn't lived through this kind of prolonged stagnation since before World War II. How has the American economy been hobbled like this? Key insight number 2. A class divide is at the root of our problems. If you are surprised by these statistics and my idea, you are probably a college graduate. Income, wealth, and life expectancy have risen in recent decades for people with a 4-year degree. And for the richest Americans, incomes and wealth have soared. The problem is that our economy has stopped benefiting working class families. An American with a bachelor's degree can expect to live 8 years longer than somebody without one. Racial inequalities have also grown. Key insight number 3. Political power shapes our economy. During the middle decades of the 20th century, ordinary Americans built political power through mass movements, especially labor unions. These movements succeeded to a remarkable degree. Incomes and life expectancy rose across the board, and inequality fell. The white-black wage gap shrank. The United States was still filled with terrible injustice during these decades. But Americans could expect that their lives would improve over time and that their children's life would be better than their own. In the past half century, the power dynamic changed. The political left, whose important institution is the Democratic Party, has increasingly come to reflect and represent the views of relatively well-off college graduates and professionals. Republicans advocate for small government, big business, and laissez-faire capitalism. They favor tax cuts for the wealthy, reductions in benefit for the middle class and poor, and allow businesses to maximize profits. Republicans claim that these strategies bring prosperity for everyone. The results since 1980 say otherwise. Number 4. We don't invest in the future as much we used to. Consider that it takes longer to travel across the United States today than it did 60 years ago. A typical cross-country flight takes about 30 minutes longer than it did in the 1960s because aviation technology has not advanced in ways that speed up the trip. Meanwhile, the skies have become so crowded that planes slow down to accommodate traffic. Nearly every other part of a cross-country trip in airports and on local roads has also become longer. Only if you're wealthy enough to fly on a private jet can you easily recreate the travel times of past decades. The speed at which people can get from one place to another is a basic measure of a society's sophistication. It affects economic productivity and human happiness. Our slowdown in travel speeds reflect a larger decline in investment. One of the most basic level investment is a society's willingness to devote resources to improving the lives of future generations by sacrificing today. It involves diverting money that might otherwise be spent on consumption and instead spending it on education, scientific research, emerging technology, or transportation. Past investments have been crucial to American prosperity, but the share of resources that we devote to the investment has declined markedly in recent decades. Key insight 5. The United States can build a stronger economy. The country has prospered before by building a form of capitalism that works well for most citizens. I use the term democratic capitalism to describe a system in which the government recognizes its crucial role in guiding the economy. The free market does many things well but also tends to lapse into a predictable set of excesses. Under democratic capitalism, a society respects both the power as well as the weakness of the market. The government uses taxes to prevent the formation of an economic aristocracy and to pay for activities that the market neglects. The government regulates businesses to protect consumers and workers. The term democratic capitalism is particularly apt because it reflects the symbiotic relationship between democracy and capitalism under the best of circumstances. Democratic governance prevents the excesses of the free market capitalism, while the material gains produced by the capitalism foster the faith in society on which the democracy depends. Democracy strengthens capitalism and capitalism strengthens democracy. We are a long way from having an economy like that, but there are reasons for hope. Most Americans know that the current system isn't working. They want something different. We can see the evidence all around us. Something different has worked before and it can work again. We can hope.